We'll open this meeting of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, informal and formal session for April 23rd of 2020. And we'll begin with a flag salute. Commissioner, can you lead us?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. And due to COVID-19 and social distancing requirements, we encourage anyone wishing to submit general public comment or comments on agenda items to do so in written format via email at bocinfo@co.yamhill.or.us or by mail at 535 Northeast 5th Street in McMinnville, Oregon 97128. Any comments received prior to the meeting will be shared with the Board of Commissioners and submitted to the record. And should have brought them out, but we do have public comment that came in. Actually, I'm not able to find it. Okay, do you have copies? Thank you. We received a number of public comments over the past week regarding the working conditions with the Yamhill County employees. And then we received one just this morning from Scott Gibson regarding coronavirus and the state reopening plan. So these will be in the record. And if you haven't seen them already in paper form, I have them here.
We've got them. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you for submitting public comment, everyone. We read it and we think about it. So move on to the consent agenda, which is item D, and we have none today. Move on to item E, which is old business, and we have none today. We move on to item F, which is other business. And item F1 is consideration of approval of an agreement between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Yamhill Community Care Organization for the funding of service integration teams, or SIT, in the amount of $10,500 for the 2019-2020 and the 2020-2021 fiscal years. And Commissioner, would you like to add any comments to that?
Typically, we're going to be giving $1,500 to each of the 7 SITs, the service integration teams, and that's for that total of $10,500. What this does is just make sure there's no duplication of services and that we're allocating the appropriate services to each individual organization.
Great, thank you. It seems like a really good use.
I'll make
really
a motion
important
that we
thing.
approve.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F1. Item F2 is consideration of approval of service element prior authorization, or SEPA, number 36412884 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Department of Human Services, which is Board Order 19-221 for the financing of community developmental disability services in the amount of $4 million, retroactive from March 1st, 2020 through April 30th of 2020. And Commissioner.
And that's for a rent subsidy for each of the providers in our DD services.
Yes.
I'll again make a motion that we approve.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F2. Item F3 is consideration of approval of intergovernmental agreement number 33720 between Yamhill County and Odot for the replacement of the Salt Creek Swale Bridge and improvements to the intersection of Southwest Lancefield Road and Oregon 153. And Commissioners, the information was in the packet. I just want to clarify for the record that we're not entering an agreement to replace the bridge, but Odot will be replacing the bridge over Swale. Salt Creek, and we will be, we give them permission to change the intersection of Lancefield Road and Oregon 153. If there are any other questions. Okay. And that's a long overdue upgrade to that particular location. So, and we'll return actually to that in the MIP in here in a moment, actually the same place. So.
All righty. I would move approval.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F3. Item F4 is consideration of approval of an agreement between Yamhill County and Farnham Electric Construction for the Annex/Abacus outside lighting upgrade project in the amount of $27,945.
All I'd like to say is if you've been by there at night, the lighting in that area between Abacus House and the other building are very poor.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the worst lit buildings we have on the campus. So I'm all for making a motion to approve that.
Absolutely.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F4. Thank you, Commissioners. Item F5 is consideration of approval to authorize HHS Director Lindsay Manfrin or designee on behalf of Yamhill County Health and Human Services to submit an application for a distance learning and telemedicine grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Rural Utilities Service, not to exceed $1 million.
Okay,
Anything to add?
no, just that it's going to allow for upgrade for devices for mobile home for homes and mobile locations, and that's also going to be able to help us use our telehealth platform with our electronic health record.
Right. I noticed that was that little piece at the end, so thank you for clarifying that. Great.
I would move approval.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F5. Item F6 is consideration of approval of the Public Works 2020 through 2021 Maintenance Improvement Project Road List. Total base amount of $4,675,875 with alternates. And Commissioners, you saw the information in the
Yeah,
packet?
I saw the list, and I think once again this year it's a very Public Works put together a very good list of trying to keep some of our infrastructure up to date before it totally deteriorates. So
Yeah.
I had no problem with this.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a change I recognize from other years, but very, very much supported by the Road Improvement Advisory Committee. They've been, it was really good to see all the work that everybody's been doing to get to this spot. So,
Yeah, RIAC does a great job.
yeah.
I'm glad to see them being used a little bit more.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of them listening to staff and listening to community members before they also recommended their approval of it. So
Yes, absolutely.
okay, and I want to acknowledge thank you to Mark Lago and to Ken and Christian for their work on this too.
Okay,
I'll
great.
make a motion that we approve Public Works 2020-2021 MIP total base amount of $4,675,875 with alternates.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F6. Item F7 is consideration of approval of the reappointments of Nancy Keim, Craig Johnson, and Amanda Schindler, and the appointment of Jules Martinez Plancarte to the Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee, each for 3-year terms to expire on June 30th of 2023. Commissioner?
My only question on that one is the reappointments. I don't have an issue with the actual appointment of Jules. How that opening was advertised or how we got that, because we talked so much last year about when we come up with new positions to make sure they're advertised so we have a good broad sector of applications. So I don't know, Ken.
Well, keeping in mind that with the Transit Advisory Committee, there are certain categories on that committee that in order to be compliant with the statute, it's not just a general advertisement. There are certain roles that those individual positions play. And I was looking for the memo really quickly, but if I remember correctly, this new appointment is a Newburgh City Council member who's being appointed to fill a position that was vacated by a former City Council member. So it's a Newburgh representative.
Right.
Okay.
That checks the boxes in one of the requirements under the STIF funding for these committees.
Okay, with Ken's recommendation, with Ken's comments and the recommendation that we appoint Jules Martinez Plancarte to the Transit Advisory Committee, I'll entertain or I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The record showing unanimous approval of item F7. Item F8 is consideration of approval of a letter to Oregon legislators requesting the governor lift Executive Order 2012 and allow for decisions based upon local jurisdictions, case count, and hospital capacity. And this is continued from April 16th of 2020.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I had asked that this letter be sent to our legislators, basically to go on record to say that, give them an idea, sort of the high-level overview of where we are in terms of the criteria that the governor had laid out. And so I put together some information according to one of the board members of the CCO, Dr. Dan Dale, who's a medical doctor, and also just to give us an overview of some of those criteria issues, which would be PPE, capacity, hospital capacities, turnaround for testing, variety of things like that. And I think what this does is it gives all of our legislators, and I know that they're all conversant in what's going on, but several of our legislators are working with multiple counties. So this will give them an idea of where we are. And also just to point out that at this point, 24 states are ready to reopen, and Oregon is not on that list. If you look at the fact that we're in the lowest 5 states in the country for deaths per capita, and we had a surplus of ventilators. We have certainly plenty of capacity for hospital beds. So I think looking at that, I'd like to just encourage our legislators to go to the governor and say, while we're working on a variety of these criteria and the different phases, we know the governor is going to be speaking in a few minutes about reopening some medical procedures, which are not minor. She doesn't want those to be allowed to go forward, but certainly medical procedures that have been put off. So while we're seeing work like that, I believe that this is taking a lot of time. We have phase 1, which is now being looked at a variety of different committees, and they're going to get back to us on the 4th with some ideas. In the meantime, our businesses are clamoring for the ability to open up. So I would just want to go on record with our legislators saying that we'd like the county to be considered based on the number of the criteria we have, and I thought we're doing well.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to return to my notes from last week, where that you agreed to write a letter on our behalf that asked the governor to consider geographics in reopening. But this is not. I mean, based upon my understanding, this is not the same letter that we essentially agreed upon a draft of. And so I just want to put that out there, that what we agreed, and I look back at my notes, I should have listened to the record, but what we agreed on was to ask the governor to consider geographic specifics when reopening.
Well, she already agreed to that in
Okay.
her press conference.
Great.
She agreed to that. So that's not the issue. It's not like
Right.
we're asking her to do something she
Right.
hasn't already considered.
Right, so this is a new letter then in a way.
This is the letter where I had suggested that you were not happy with the citations and some of the information in that.
Mhm.
So I said, well, let me go ahead and make this more Yamhill County specific. So while the geographic consideration is not something that's new, that was
Sure.
something she had agreed to. What I laid out in this latest letter is to look at the specifics in Yamhill County, some of the metrics that we've already met.
Yeah.
And that would be in giving this to our legislators, that would be a base code for them to see where we're at, for them to then encourage the governor to look at what's going on in Yamhill County and consider that geographic component related to us.
Right.
I'm a little concerned about using the regional approach, because if you look on the, we're lumped in sometimes in terms of numbers with Washington County, Multnomah County, and Clackamas County.
Yeah.
And I think that might do us a disservice. So I would like to just have Yamhill County be considered. We certainly don't operate in a vacuum,
Yeah.
but our airport is still open and our highways are still open, and there's no way to put borders on Yamhill County. But I can recommend, and I would recommend, that our businesses be able to return to operation, even if it's limited. Because I noticed on the phase 1, the modifications for Oregon's phase 1 include bars that the work group would look at a proposal for a phase 1 open plan. But then I look at the churches would likely remain closed during phase 1. And I've had a number of emails from local pastors saying, I can go to a bar, I can go to a pot shop, I can go to a liquor store, but my congregants can't come to church. So those are a couple of things I'd like us to look at. But I think our legislators might want to know what's going on number-wise.
Here's
Sure.
my whole take on it, and I agree with a lot of things in Commissioner Starrett's letter. Maybe the misnomer is we're asking for consideration of approval letter to Oregon legislature requesting the governor lift Executive Order 2012 and allow for decisions based. I don't have any problem sending to the legislature, but I'm not so clear. We're asking the governor to allow us to open based on allow for decisions based on local jurisdictions, case count, and hospital capacity. But I don't think we should be asking for her to actually terminate, because there are big counties to actually terminate or do away with her executive order.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm sure she won't. But I think going by the premise that we're asking our legislatures to continue to work on making sure things that need to be open are open and
Right.
backing us that way, but not necessarily asking the legislature, because they're doing it anyway, to overturn 2012. I would like to say that we consideration of approval of the letter to Oregon legislature requesting and allowing for decisions based on local jurisdiction, case count, and hospital capacity.
Right. I think that is more in the spirit of both what we talked about, or I didn't talk about, but what a lot of
Sure.
people talked about at the AOC phone call with the governor. And also, I mean, to be perfectly honest, from what I'm hearing, that's kind of what the governor is expecting to do, but maybe on a slower timeline than you're calling for.
And that's why I think Commissioner Starrett's letter is important. Our letter is important to ask the vote goes to a local stance from a local county, which other counties are doing. But I don't want to be put it to the point where we're actually asking our legislators to overturn the Executive Order 2012.
No, and well, if you look at, for instance, Harney County, they've got their own approach where they're asking the governor to look at a pilot program where Harney County would be the test case because they have no cases of COVID.
Right.
So they're just saying, hey, look at us, let's do it. They've outlined a timeline.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the timeline that the governor has instituted right now with the different work groups, the medical advisory panel and the economic advisory panel.
Right.
I think that they've had a month to figure out how to get things back going. And now that we're just still talking about it, thinking about it, working on it, I think that there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency, but these are all people who are still collecting a government paycheck while they decide what the private sector will get to do and not do. So I think that sense of urgency isn't there, and we need to light a fire under them. And we would probably be best served by having our legislators say, "Hey guys, look at our numbers; they're good. Can we just step it up and move along?"
And so along those lines, one of the notes in here from Dan Dale on the YCCO board is that it says Yamhill County has a declining growth rate of active cases. And I haven't seen that information. So I don't, have you?
I looked at it, not in a lot of detail.
Okay, where would I be getting that information?
What, from his email? I can forward you his email.
Yeah, does he have, does
This-
he have data that he shares?
This
with
was
you?
an email he sent to the CCO.
It's the email that he sent to the CCO.
I can forward that to you.
That would be great. So I want to acknowledge too that because the CCO was cited in your letter, and I wanted to actually find out what's the CCO's position on this. And this is Seamus's comments. In order to continue stopping the spread of COVID-19, it's important that Oregon has a coordinated statewide approach to reopening. This is especially true in a county such as Yamhill, where so many of our residents commute back and forth from Washington and Marion County, both of which have been much harder hit by the virus than Yamhill County. The safety of our community depends upon a well thought out statewide approach to reopening. And so I just want to acknowledge that his his position is that a regional approach at the very, I mean, he says statewide, but what we were talking about is a regional versus a countywide approach. And I think in this case, acknowledging that we have a lot of movement back and forth from Marion County and Clackamas County, or sorry, Washington County, is important in that conversation.
Well, I
But I
think,
haven't seen the data, and so I would love to see actual numbers. Because I asked Director Manfred, but she didn't have like a compilation of here's what our growth rate looks like.
Okay, I can send you Dr. Dale's email.
Sure.
And
That'd be great.
as far
Thank
as the comments by Seamus, I think that we have lots of people who have lots of different, have some input
Yeah.
and have their own personal opinions
Sure.
based on their perspective. But I think this board is tasked with representing the constituents. And I'm looking for some sign off on this board, not on other people who are not making policy or who might have some ideas. But what does the board want to do to support constituents, specifically our economic base here?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to advance is can we please, can we please at least go on record as saying we're trying to move that along?
And
So,
sorry.
yeah.
No, where you said so.
So
Yeah.
that being said, I'm sure if you asked 10 different people, they'd have 10 different ideas. I'm asking the board
Yes.
to weigh in on this.
And the reason why, I apologize, I actually circled on your copy. I'm very sorry. The reason why I say that is that you use the YCCO's name on this. And so I just want to make it clear that when we're citing other people, we're citing them, right? And so when we cite somebody and it says CCO board, that suggests that it's that information is an endorsement by the board.
No, Commissioner, it doesn't. I'll tell you why. I am identifying the source, which is Dr. Dan Dale, who happens to be a medical doctor in Yamhill County
Yeah.
and a board member.
Right.
That is not speaking for the CCO. It's an identifier of what his position is.
Yes. And it still looks like it. But Commissioner, you were
no,
going to say
I
something as
agree.
well.
I don't think when you cite a name and everything out, you're not citing Dr. Dale's personal opinion. You're just saying, this is this is what he does. And yes, he's a board member, but as a board member, he is not representing the CCO totally. But I agree that put somebody's name in there and as a reference to that information, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
So this information came from, sorry, what was the source?
It was an email from Dr. Dale. I will forward that email to you.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I would like to see that. So when I'm looking at the various components of the governor's framework, one of them is additional prerequisites for opening a county in Oregon. And so I thought, well, we have a framework here right now for addressing the essentially the same letter that we have here. And so I'm curious about why we couldn't follow this framework.
Well, I would suggest that the reason we can't follow this framework is because, as I stated a few moments ago, there seems to be no sense of urgency. And every day I get emails from people who say, I am about to lose everything that I have worked for my entire life. Now we've got people, we've got the experts, these unelected bureaucrats who are working on advisory panels and study groups to come up with a plan, which we might see the week of May 4th. In the meantime, here we are, and we're into the next month. This started in March. We went through April. Now we're into May, and then we might have a plan. We don't know when that plan would be rolled out or implemented. I'm saying that the governor might have a plan, but that we should be representing, I believe, at least I want to represent the people in this community who are wondering when they can go back to work. We
Sure.
don't have an end date. There's no end date. We're studying it.
Right.
It's not good enough.
You know, to me, I think there's a couple different issues. And one is, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, this is kind of like, to me, a get off your seat and do something. And we're just asking for our legislative delegation support to tell the state to get off there and do more than they're doing. And we would like some input into that. I don't think, other than that, I don't think it's anything else. So I think the letter just saying, we're not We're not saying that everything should be opened up. We're not saying that it should be overturned. That plan may be good enough, but we're just saying, if it is good enough, get off the button, get it done. That's all we're saying.
Mhm. So to go back to the comments about unelected, I believe you said experts who are just talking and not doing. Slide number 18 is sector-specific discussions with owners, practitioners, workers, and health professionals. And those apparently started this week, including restaurants and food service, retail, personal services, childcare, transit, and then outdoor recreation, I believe, was added as a later addition. And so I want to acknowledge that those are areas where people who are doing things and generating wealth and prosperity and quality of life in our community are talking in groups with the governor's office. And so I'm not sure who you're referring to by the unelected bureaucrat expert, but these people sound like they are experts and they're not elected, just from what I see here. And I'm just looking at the framework, the PowerPoint that I got from Senator Boquist.
One of the issues with that I have is if you look at those teams she's put together to look at those things, who's on it are people like from the restaurant and hospitality industry, not necessarily small business, not necessarily people that are located in Yamhill County. They're representatives representing the state and the overall. And if you look at how those different committees she made up work, they're mostly people that represent state associations. They don't represent businesses themselves.
Thank you, Commissioner. And can I just respond to that and say that it
Yes,
is now
please.
the end of April. We're closing in on the end of April, and we now have convened groups who are starting to work on this. Those groups, it is appropriate that they work on it, but it would have been appropriate that they work on it a month ago. When I talk about the unelected bureaucrats who have been collecting government paychecks, and there doesn't seem to be any urgency, it's what has transpired in the month from March 23rd when this executive order was issued.
Yeah.
So if we have people who are experts making these decisions for people who are going to work or not going to work, why is it now the beginning of May and we're now just finding out what our industries think? And again, the trade organizations and the representatives from the trade organizations are a little different than the woman who runs a nail salon or a coffee shop.
Right.
It's the same as the people that represent the trucking sector, the freight sector. They're members of the trucking association. They aren't any individual people that may be an independent contractor, an independent trucker who really relies on that to do his business. And that's my concern why I think the county should be more involved and we should lobby more for the county. And I think all this does is, and Mary brings up a good point, is what have they been doing for the last month? We're asking our legislative delegation to ask those questions and push for that. And I know that the 3 or 4 that I deal with, they've been doing it, but we're asking everybody to do it and do it a little bit quicker and a little bit harder. So that's all my only comment.
Okay. This is really interesting. So I just got this. I apologize. I was listening and I was looking. You can't see it very well, but that's the cases in Yamhill County by onset date. So that's, if you look at it in graphic form at least, and come to a conclusion, I'm not suggesting that Dr. Dale is in any way incorrect. I just hadn't seen a declining growth rate in this. But when I come back to I don't recall the answers from the governor's office about the representatives. I know that there are representatives of each of the, like the Oregon, was it the restaurant? There's the Oregon Restaurant Association. But I'm just looking at that slide and it says practitioners. So, I'm getting information on a daily basis, as you are, commissioners, from business owners in the county, and I'm directing that. I'm sending those up the chain, as it were. So at least I feel like there's an open conduit of information from our business owners and business leaders into the state.
Right, but there's nothing from the Board of Commissioners saying, and we're not, I don't necessarily agree or I don't necessarily disagree with those numbers, Casey.
Yeah.
But to me, the numbers, whether they're growing, whether they're declining, we're not asking the legislator to do that. We're asking them, whatever plan they are, to come up with the plan. So at least we're not sitting here a month from now with no plan left. So the fact that the numbers are going up or going down, when they do start going down, we're going to have a plan ready to implement, and not wait a month and say, oh, now we'll come up with another plan to open them back up. I think it's open to me personally. I think it's important to open them up as soon as possible, but I think we need to do it under great care. And to me, this letter doesn't say open it up and open them now. It just says, hey, just give us a little bit more say and push harder to get the plan done.
I understand what you're saying. Can I propose some different language?
Sure.
Just in reading it, I feel like if there was slightly different language,
Okay.
I would agree with it.
Okay.
And what I think, and I can write this down too. I'm just looking at this, and it says that you urge Governor Brown to ease the Executive Order 2012 restriction in Yamhill County to allow us to begin to rebuild our economy. I think that changing the easy Executive Order 2012, because that's not all, the restaurants and bars one is a different executive order, for example. And so I don't want to get them confused. And the reason why churches are having a hard time operating, I mean, that sounds funny, but ministering in larger groups is that there was a previous executive order that said you can't have more than 25 people. This one says 10, but it's still, I think that the 25 is the number that really is restricting, is that we asked the governor to how about move quickly on a geographic basis, because I think that you've got in here the plan that here's what we can do in our plan, but the content of the letter and the first line I feel like are different. And so what I would propose is the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners requests that you urge Governor Brown to move quickly to apply geographic specific measures to Yamhill County, something along those lines.
That's not inconsistent with the concepts here, but I think when you use the term move quickly in any government capacity, you and I, Commissioner Olson, you probably know better than anybody sitting here that government works at glacial speed, and something that can be done in the private sector in an hour takes months for government to do. So how do we define move quickly when here we are a month and a half or whatever, more than a month into it, and we're still talking about how to get back on? So I'm talking about a little more specific about Yamhill County, because that's our concern here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe expeditiously, so Yamhill County can take advantage of whatever may come or something like that. I mean, I think the letter, I agree with Mary's letter. I said that I don't really like the executive order brought up that, but I wanted to focus more on something. So if we took something out or put it where we can define what it was, and I don't know if it's expeditiously, because I don't want the governor to say, well, here Yamhill County is asking me to overturn the 2012, and she's not going to do it.
Right.
No.
So I wrote this down when I saw it earlier, and I just realized that this might actually fit with it. This is what Coos County actually said. I'm putting them together. Is the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners request that you urge Governor Brown to work with Yamhill County to develop a plan to responsibly and safely reopen our county, and then there would be period. Because I thought that there was a really good way of saying, hey, we're going to work with you on this.
I'd like to see some word like, even though we can't define it, some word like expeditiously in there, because we can say that, like what Bob Main said about
Mhm.
theirs, Commissioner Main from Coos County
From Coos County.
said that they want to do that, but they could ask them to do that 4 months from now, because things may not change.
Yeah.
So by using something like what Coos County put in, but putting a qualifier in there like expeditiously, will it do any good? I don't know, but it doesn't do any harm, put it that way.
Commissioner, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think that the urgency, but also, I think we need to start defining our terms. Like what is it that we're asking when we say work with us? Because I would assume the assumption is that they are working with the counties, but how do we position ourselves so that we're saying, based on numbers, we're good to go, and so we got this.
Mhm. I mean, I think that if we're going to say that we're going to, or we want to reopen, I think then we have to have plans in place across the county for that, right? So restaurants need to have best practices that they all agree on. Every industry in theory should have a list of best practices.
But that's what they're doing
Right.
at the state.
At the state, yes, exactly. But our county is not unique in having some kind of bubble that keeps people from getting infected. And so our businesses still need to have a plan in place.
Right, so they're working on that, and they're working on getting the input on how would a restaurant position tables, and that how would a salon worker manage it. Those types of things are in the works. I guess what I'm saying is that while that's being done on a statewide level, and they are working on it, my whole point is that in working on it, and when you got the state involved, there's not a whole lot of, you don't usually see quick results. So I guess this letter really only serves one purpose, and that's to put all our legislators on the same page in saying to the governor, Yamhill County has some pretty good numbers, and we'd like you to be aware of that, and we'd also like some be able to have some type of give us a hall pass.
And I come back to, I mean, we're not at the end of this. If you just look at I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I should make it brighter. So that is Yamhill County specific figures. So we're not going down. And while I agree that we have a lower case count, I'll acknowledge that, than Marion County or Washington County on a per capita basis or on an absolute basis. We're still not seeing a significant drop that would say, okay, we meet all of these, these criteria.
So I think that if we're waiting till we have no cases, or we're waiting to see that we can say, okay, we have nothing in the hopper in terms of active cases, we're good to go, then I think that we basically need to just say RIP to all our businesses, because they're not going to make it. If people are concerned about being sick or getting sick, they certainly would not want to go out into the community, but that should not preclude our businesses from being able to open. So when you use those types of numbers, I think what we're saying to people is, until we see a complete flat line, you're shut down.
But I'm saying that this letter doesn't match our data. That's all I'm saying.
The data is really important, and and you're a data person, and the data is really important. But what we're asking the legislature to do, to me anyway, has nothing to do with the data. It's just asking them to support working with the governor to get a plan in and get it quick, and let us take part in that plan. Let us be part of that plan. I'm not going to dispute the numbers.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are numbers, but I think we're talking about two things: the number of cases, whether it's going up, going down, or wherever it is, and you have the chart. You have the chart that shows that there's been an incline. But this is just saying, if you're going to come up with a plan, come up with a plan, do it expeditiously, let us be part of it. I mean, to me, that's what the letter is.
I would happily sign on to that letter if you want to write it.
No, I think Mary's letter said it real well. If we take out the part of just the revoking an executive order, I think if something else can work out, we could revoke, I see nothing wrong with her letter.
But Commissioner, did you have something to add?
No, I was
to
just
that?
going to say, when you have increased testing,
Yeah.
you'll show increased cases. So for instance,
Right.
we've had COVID probably in the community since November or December or early January, who knows. So if you're concerned about the line in there that says we have declining growth rate of active cases, I mean, that's definitely one of the metrics. But I also think
Mhm.
that one of the metrics is increased testing, which we now have the ability to do.
Right. Yep.
We will never probably see zeroed out in any, in short order.
Right. That's a good point. I agree. And I'm really excited to see more testing coming on. And I know that there's problems with antibody testing, but I still think it's an important tool in the toolbox. Speaking of different testing types.
Yeah. And we can do antibody testing all over the county. We can do it.
Right.
The only thing is what's the integrity of that test? Does it really tell us anything?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
But we all know that you can, there's, as what is it, Mark Twain said, lies, damn lies, and statistics.
I was thinking about the one about politicians, but I like that one better.
But basically that statistics can be used and reworked in any number of ways. I think that we have some pretty good numbers here. And all I'm saying is I think we really need to be aggressive in trying to get our people back to work.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that we also need to acknowledge that each industry needs to have a plan before we should be encouraging them to get back to work.
And are you talking about the government tells you these are the things you need to do, whether it's county or state? These are the parameters under which you can operate?
I'm talking about businesses and industries, because there's often industry specific practices, right? Like that's why you call it a best practice, is because it's not just one company that a business can adapt to their own particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
But until people have those written, and we can have somebody besides us go over them, maybe environmental health at the county, go over them and say, this is really going to work to slow or reduce the transmission of illness through your business. I don't think we should be encouraging the state to let us do something different until we can say, yeah, we've got this. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do, but I think we have a fundamental philosophical difference about this, because I think that the free market is really very good at policing itself. In other words, there are places that you won't go into and do business with because you can tell that sanitation-wise or any other area you have concerns about. So if you say, okay, restaurants in Yamhill County, you really need to make sure that you're limiting the exposure and the number of people who are in your establishment, and allow them to do what they do best, which is to run their business so that people will be willing to and more likely to come in.
Sure.
We're now waiting for the government to give us more mandates. And I don't know that typically is going to work. Certainly the work group is great.
Yeah.
But we're looking at May now.
Right.
So
Probably
when
we'll
does
be
this-
looking at June by the time the work group.
Yeah, when do they come down with the edict of what you can do to open or not open? I think that it's getting a little heavy-handed.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge that the specific example of the restaurant is not addressed by 20-12.
No.
And so, like, if we're going to talk about what this letter says or doesn't say, yeah, what's the number? I thought you just said it.
2013. It's not 2020.
Is it right before?
Yeah, I think it's right before. It's right,
Yeah.
not too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the one example that I know, well, I will acknowledge that it's not as fast as some people would prefer. I know that she's probably talking right now, the governor is, about
The
the
hospitals.
non-urgent medical procedures work. They, as far as I understand, the medical advisory committee met this week. They wrote it up, and then they're vetting it within the community, right? Because you have to do that, as you just acknowledged. It has to be something that's workable for hospital systems across the state. So that is a case where it seems very slow, and there's federal money, it sounds like, and state money being allocated to help those hospitals until they can get to that point. But they also need to start scheduling surgeries. So I acknowledge that there has to be ultimately there has to be a delay, a lag, just because they can't do them all at once.
So I just a question, and this is just wondering, if we've had exactly 1 month today, I believe, since the executive order was issued, and we knew that at some point we were going to allow non-emergent medical procedures to take place, why are we now just kicking this around a month later? Why was this not something where we said, we're going to tell you can't do surgeries, but we're not going to ever figure out how you're going to open the pipeline until a month, and we're still discussing it. Mm-hmm. So I guess my concern then extends to the economic considerations of businesses. Are we going to have another month, as Commissioner Olson said, before we even have a game plan?
Right. I mean, it doesn't sound like it.
No, and I talked to several restaurant owners in McMinnville, and they know what the best practices are, and they know some of them are already talking about taking some of their tables out, rearranging some of their tables, not letting more than 30 people in. I mean, they know it, but they said, well, why should we do it? Because even if we did all that, they're not going to let us open anyway until this plan is done that says this is how you'll open, even though they know what to do.
Sure.
And the ones that don't comply with it just don't get open. But if they know what the best standards, and they're, like you said, Casey, if they're adhering to the best standards, and our restaurant owners, most of them know what to do. The ones that don't, that concern me more, are the big chains. But the private individual businesses that use, and I'll just use restaurants again, and hotels, that local business is their business. That those people are pretty well informed. They know what they need to do, but they have no faith that if they do it, they would let them the state still won't let them open up.
So I would just come back to, I proposed, let's see, essentially, it goes something like this. Thank you for your service to the communities of Yamhill County. The Yamhill County Board of Commissioners requests that you work with the governor, state agencies, and neighboring counties to develop a plan to responsibly and safely reopen Yamhill County and rebuild our economy, because I think that's an important. You want to include that.
I don't see what's different in what you suggested into what is ostensibly being done now.
Well, so first, Executive Order 2012 is not everything. Can we acknowledge that that's
one of the reasons.
Just one of a number of
them.
executive orders.
That's the only reason I want that one.
And
I want any reference to any of the executive orders.
Yeah, and because the restaurant one is
different one.
Yeah,
right.
It's a different one. But what it's forward-looking rather than backward-looking, and it says that that's because this is the beginning, this is the opening, that we want to work with you to safely reopen and responsibly reopen our county and our economy.
I think I don't have any problem with that opening if we take out the COVID 52, but we even put maybe a little stronger, expeditiously work with the counties in the states, because even though it probably won't do any good, but expeditiously does have it, not even though it's not a date, calendar date, it just says we're tired of dealing with this. Work expeditiously and get this darn thing done.
Like, we're partners, but we're pushing you. Right.
Kind of. That's what I hate to
Yeah,
say.
but I think we need to be clear. I think that your suggestion is perhaps along the lines of what they're going to say. We're already doing that.
Okay.
So how can we add a little more, some teeth to that to say, nobody does what Yamhill County does. I don't care if you go all over 36 counties. What we do on every level is far and away more superior to what the state does in terms of what they do. We should not be waiting for them to necessarily give us the game plan.
Sure.
Because that will, as we know, will be here a while.
And that's why I think that's the purpose of the language that I, with acknowledgement, pulled out of Coos County's comments, is that we are here and we were going to work with you on that, rather than just having that top
We
down.
are here and we want them to work with us. That's
Sure.
the difference.
That sounds
We don't
good.
want to work with them. We want them to work with us.
Mhm.
Yeah, to cooperate with us in our, we're aggressively and expeditiously trying to get our businesses open.
Mhm.
If we want to work with them and we're waiting for them, as I said, we'll be here a while.
No, and that's why I say we want them to work with us. Because, I mean, there's several, I think, options we have, but I just want to get a letter out there in front of our commissioners or in front of our delegation urging the governor to work with us to get this in, because we don't want to wait on it.
So why can't we maybe get rid of this letter and just basically say what Commissioner Olson said? Short and sweet. She's probably tired of reading. They're probably tired of reading things, and just make it, one paragraph,
Big though, right? We should make it big font.
big font.
I mean, I'm not trying to say or size. I'm not trying to be funny, but like, it gets my attention. How about
Yeah, sure.
We can make it 16 or something.
that?
Exactly. Basically, and Commissioner, do you want to
I
propose
can
a
draft a short.
draft short and sweet
letter,
and
I will,
unequivocal?
I'll email it to Ken, and then Ken can give it to, would that be the right way to pass?
We
them
can't
for
do that.
review?
You could agree to it right now.
Information, but
Right.
we can't,
Vote on it.
No, we can't vote on it remotely, but if I send it to you to share information with them to review this.
But that's another week. So
And that's what I was thinking, is that if there's a couple more agenda items, if you could write something down or type something while we're here, right? Wouldn't that be?
I really didn't want to, we have another conference call. but
Oh,
you're-
that's right. You're at 11:30.
so just
That's fine.
basically, if we could
Oh, I
maybe
can write it
even
down.
do this now.
I'm actually. You learned that
You
I'm
have
a fast typer.
You are a fast
remember?
typer. I
Yeah.
found that out. Okay.
You do it, Casey.
But you were a slow talker. I'll just acknowledge.
I was a slow talker. Okay. All right. So, dear senators and representatives, thank you for your service. We strongly encourage you to urge Governor Brown to work with Yamhill County as we aggressively pursue reopening our businesses and allowing our community to get back to
Back to normalcy.
no, Chris. Urge our communities to. Can you read? Can you?
Dear senators and representatives, thank you for your service to the communities of Yamhill County. The Yamhill County Board of Commissioners strongly encourages you to work with the governor to aggressively return our county
No.
to.
Strongly urges you to, what is it, to encourage the governor to work with Yamhill County. Yeah, I think we need to have a moment to put this together.
I
'Cause
think
to
so,
do
too.
it
I
on the
think you're
fly
right.
is not,
Yeah.
is not doing it any justice.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
So, how about can we come back to this before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Noelle, he's looking.
Hello, Noelle.
Hi,
Just
Noelle.
acknowledge.
So we can
okay.
defer this till
I just
later.
want to put
in
it
the
out
agenda.
there, I mean, we could, if you wanted to go to the rest of the agenda, or if you wanted to recess to work on some language.
Don't want to
But
miss
you
that.
gotta-
I know they got.
I got that one.
Okay.
Okay,
Especially since I got Jody to find.
Why
And
don't-
do we have an executive session today?
Yes, we have an executive session.
Okay, just one. I didn't mean as a group. No.
say again?
It wouldn't mean that we'd recess and work on the language as a group.
Right.
We would recess. and-
Somebody would type it up.
Somebody would go and prepare that
Yeah.
and bring it back.
Yeah.
Let's wait till the end of our agenda and see
Okay.
how. See where
Okay.
we are.
Okay, well, we will, all right, going back onto the agenda. Thank you, Ken, for explaining that. We are setting aside F8 for a moment, and we're going to move on to item F9, which is consideration of a proposal to support a backup emergency shelter. let's see if I can pull out. I was asked to present this to you on behalf of YCAP, the City of McMinnville, and Health and Human Services. Really, let me find.
That's the letter that I think that Councilor Drapkin.
Yes, did you see it?
Yes, I saw
Okay,
that.
great. So their proposal is it's part of the, essentially, it feels like a long time ago now, but the 5 prerequisites to opening that the governor laid out last Monday. One of them was shelter, safe way to isolate and quarantine folks who don't otherwise have a safe place to do that. And I didn't really see a way for us to be able to fund it, even though that was a proposal, is that the county would share in the funding. But I just saw, and I guess it's happening in a couple of minutes, they're starting the e-board meeting. And there's 12 million that they're proposing to set aside for housing people who are either were exposed to COVID and don't have a safe place to house, or were exposed in a congregate setting and now need to be separated in order to keep the exposure, keep them from infecting others. And so that's what I would propose, is that we this group of YCAP in the city and HHS are asking the county to consider being part of that partnership. They also want to have the city of Newburgh was going to join that as well. I apologize, I should have added that.
I can tell.
But I'm identifying that, I assume, as the place where we would go for money.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, when I first read that, it's really funny how Mary talks about how things wait and they never get done. I remember about 10 years ago that I worked with I think everybody knows Howie Harkema, on a concept he had called the Compass Center, which had housing. It had all the county and city had the services they needed there. They had educational services there, food there, a kitchen there, and everything was in one place. So if you were homeless,
Right.
you stayed there. If you needed to talk to somebody in HHS, they were there. Everybody was there. I liked that idea 10 years ago, and I like that idea even more nowadays. So that's all I could say.
Okay. Yes.
A question, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. So
And I only recently learned about this, so I apologize. I don't have as much information.
So I'm reading the letter where the city of McMinnville is writing to the governor and the Speaker of the House and the Senate President regarding House Bill 4001, and about the money that was the money that, because of the session being curtailed, that $1.5 million for the navigation center is pretty much, they're asking for, they would be interested in accessing those resources to provide for this. So how is that factor into our collaboration with the cities of McMinnville and Newburgh?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I believe that is separate from that letter, which is separate from what's the proposal that's in the packet. But the proposal that's in the packet is, essentially a draft budget for using a motel setting to house people who are then in daily case management with HHS employees.
So I'm wondering, okay, so there's no consideration of House Bill 4001 at this point
I
in
don't
this
believe so.
project?
No, exactly. I think that's separate.
In a separate ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, because I remember they talked to me about it and I saw
That's
the
a
letter.
separate issue.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got that. We'll put that aside for the next discussion.
That's good. It's highlighted, so I'm excited to have that conversation.
Files. So when we talk about the support of a backup emergency shelter, the county's financial contribution to that has to be considered.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest is that be something that the budget committee have a proposal, so that they can, when we have budgets, we can look at what is feasible, what's possible, and what's doable before we make any kind of a commitment.
Yeah. Well, let me find out then the timeline that they have in mind, because I think that if their timeline is to move more quickly, it would be good to.
Yeah, I think that's
to find
good,
that out.
because the fact about it is, even if we went into this partnership off the bat, not even without any financial contribution.
Yeah.
If they came up with a place where we could potentially have on call or whatever, have some of our HHS staff there that they may deal with,
Yeah.
even though we financially can't at this time, but I like the idea of coming up with an idea about the present to the budget committee on that, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's April 23rd.
Next week
Next
after
week.
next.
Oh, yes, that's not that
It's
far. I
coming up.
guess the only thing is that that would be for the next fiscal year, right? Because we're not
Oh, yeah, before the 2021.
the 2021. That's a lot of 20s.
And
Correct.
so
That
it-
would be discussing funding that would be, potentially available on July 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So so I think that has to be considered. And also, as Commissioner said, the in-kind
Mhm.
that the county can provide, since we're the one with the social services.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So is that in-kind,
Yeah,
and what's the ask?
Yes. Well, that is included. The in-kind is considered part of that, I believe. Isn't that the case management, the 2 FTE?
Yes.
FTE, which is considerably less than what YCAP is putting in. But so I asked Ken if there were particular places where money could come from for essentially a backup emergency. What did you come to any conclusions? I mean,
Well,
it was a short time ago.
Depending on the funding amount, I mean, another logical place to go, if it's not something that's within the HHS budget
Yeah.
to support something like this, again, the ONC fund would probably be the first one I'd point to.
Okay.
Just, that's for one-time projects, one-time grants, historically. And that's the one that we use for the small business grant.
Yeah.
Another one, although that has both of them have gotten smaller, but we still have a couple $100,000 available in that fund.
Yeah.
And then the other one would be in discretionary funds. It's a small amount there. So
Okay.
I think if the FTE, where they included the FTE in their budget, I would take it those would be, when this got running, they'd be existing staff, so the FTE wouldn't cost us any additional money. It would actually be the financial contribution to ensure the whole thing keeps running. Or would we have to hire 2 more FTE?
I don't believe that's the proposal.
I don't think so, but the suggestion that I would make, instead of looking at funds strictly from county coffers, is
Mhm.
that the pay for performance dollars from the CCO
Mhm.
might be another
That's
option.
an option.
Okay.
So we should be looking, I would think
Yeah.
there, since that money is sort of earmarked for that kind of thing,
Okay.
and then look to any of the county coffers. Because I know what we've got coming up
Mhm.
in the next fiscal year is going to be daunting. And I would really hate to make some kind of a commitment now when we just don't know what it's going to look like.
So, and can you? I don't know how to.
I can find that out.
And what I will do is I'll look into how the money, the 12 million from the state, is being allocated, whether it's a formula or a competitive grant process, and
Okay.
I can bring that back to the board as well,
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting.
because that would be
what
ideal
they-
in my perspective.
It'll be really interesting what they do at the federal level
Mhm.
to give money to the action directly to counties, not to the state, but
Yeah.
directly to counties. If that passes, I think it's in the next 3.5, I think, or whatever, that
Mhm.
actually makes direct payments to the county for allowable charges to anything that had to do with COVID. So how much of that we're going to recover? We could potentially recover quite a bit.
Yeah.
If they approve that. Because there's some concern, I know in Washington, talking to Fritz, from Senator Wyden's
Mhm.
office, there is some concern about giving that money, filtering it through the state and not giving it directly to the counties, that the county won't get exactly what they're guaranteed to get, so.
Yeah, and I saw through Gina Nickel the guidance. It's probably not called the guidance, kind of the parameters around the first round of funding.
Yeah.
And that's not the one thing that jumped out at me is that it's not for new expenses that are COVID related. And that okay, that something like this is COVID related. So that's the thing that's challenging.
And it
about
is, but it isn't. You know, in that we have had a longstanding problem looking for options for a homeless population.
That's a really good point.
So
actually.
this one, then, are we going to
Ken
just?
had a comment too.
Go ahead, Ken.
I just wanted to clarify because it's in the packet.
Yeah.
You know, there were two emails that were describing this. She has the first email that went to the board, that was from Counselor Dragon, but there was a second one that's in the packet that also had the breakdown of the budget. And
Yeah.
City Manager Jeff Towery put together a description of looking at the finance. He's the one that presented the spreadsheet. And so
Mhm.
what has been asked for, it looks like the program description work would fall to YCAP and Porter County staff of working on that, on what the actual agreement and the program would look like. The program needs in total $100,000 to allow for a 2-month program and set the stage for possible continuation based on additional funding. And the city of McMinnville is willing to provide $20,000, and there's no confirmation, so I don't, I want to, Jeff's approached
Yeah.
Newburgh about a funding level, and we asked before you today, the collective request of the team that has been working on the issue is for the county to provide $50,000.
Right.
And then in addition to that, then Jeff mentioned about reaching out to the other smaller cities to also contribute to this program.
Right.
So I just
Yeah,
wanted
thank
to
you.
clarify, what the ask was that was,
Thanks, Ken, because that was leading to my question is I don't know what other, now we know where the asks are out there. But what I'd like to know information about what is the program really going to be? They're donating City of McMinnville 20,000. And what's the program really? I didn't see, even in the first memo, really see where the programs are defined of what it's going to do.
And the other thing is when you talk about standing something up or getting something instituted and then the continuation of that funding, where does that come from and what have we done? What have we actually put in place?
Right. And my understanding, based upon my conversation, I had a brief conversation with Alexandra at YCAP, is that she will be, or she probably is by now, looking for money from the state that would be the continuation of it through, I forget the names of the programs. It's maybe SHAP. There's one that
SHAP
she knows.
and then
What's the other one?
is OCHS
S.
one of the possibilities?
Right. So both the formula funding and I think specifically through OHCS.
Well, the
yes,
sad part, or the hard part to me is if you stand it up for 2 years, depending on the program, you always have the capability of not having funds to continue it.
Mhm.
The other part is if you don't stand it up, you'll never know if you could continue it. So,
Mhm.
it's 2 months.
2 months.
it's
Yes.
For 2 months, let's say. So I'd really like to know this. If it's very successful, the program's very successful,
Mhm.
there's no doubt it probably could be something that could be continued.
Mhm.
But we'd have to see how the success goes. But I think we need additional things on that to determine if it's something we really.
Okay.
And
And
it says, hey, here's 50,000.
yeah. And I believe that Counselor Drapkin, based upon, I need to look back at an email. I believe that she said that she'd be happy to both call in to a meeting here. Oh,
Getting emails from Director Manfred. So a couple things just to clarify. The hoteling plan, it's YCAP employees, not HHS
Okay.
employees.
Okay, great. That helps.
And the second part is the plan is already starting with YCAP, just need more funding to continue.
Okay. Oh, that's right. So it's my memory of this. I've just had a couple of phone conversations.
Thank you,
That.
Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nancy.
Director.
Thanks, Lindsay.
The YCAP has enough to get it started, but that they strongly believe, based upon their experience with running shelter situations, is that they need to be able to commit to more than 1 month in order to get everything going and get it to have a track record.
And the concern right now is where we are in this place and time as far as
Yeah.
state revenue, county revenue, the city's revenues, and the reality of what we're looking at.
Right.
So I think Commissioner Olson is wise in asking for more information about what we would be funding,
Yeah.
and for going forward, where does this put us?
Right. If I suggest to Councilor Drabkin that she reach out to both of you separately to provide that overview, would that be acceptable? I don't want to have her send her to you without it being.
No, that'd be great. And
Okay.
then in the
Individual,
meantime,
if she
I'll
sends
find
it to
out
us individually.
about
Yeah.
CCO.
And I'll look at the state, the e-board allocation as well,
Okay.
which they're probably looking at right now.
Okay, so we can probably bring that one back next week or week after.
Yeah, I think I'll put it on the agenda for next week, and if it's not ready, then
Okay.
all right. Thank you. I apologize that I don't have all the information, but I was only in the loop, not fully there. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Ken, for your help with it.
I don't know in these days and times any of us could be in the loop on everything. It's difficult times.
Having an hour difference in your information makes a world of difference right now. So, all right, I am going to move us on then to item F10, which is consideration of approval to authorize the Yamhill County Health and Human Services to purchase DoxyMe telemedicine services in the amount of $86,160 per year. And Commissioner, there's a good description in the packet, but would you like to add anything?
Basically, my question is, well, why aren't we using Zoom or Teams or all of that?
Yeah.
And they have been, but it's not optimal according to what our director has told us. It's not optimal because Zoom has security issues. It's not easily accessed by some of our clients. And so this would be an actual telehealth platform, whereas the others are not.
Right.
And also my question was, that's an awful lot of money. What happens after this? Is this something that we can cancel? But it looks like, according to Director Manfred, that we would continue to use this when we got back, because this has been a consideration going forward that our clients would really like to have this kind of an option.
Yeah.
So they could cancel the subscription if they're not satisfied and get a refund on the months not used.
Right.
But it looks like it might be something that would be utilized going forward.
Well,
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Thank
I
you for
am
a
too, because I
better.
think after we get out of this time, there's even going to be more of an emphasis to use facilities like this and everything, and not less of an emphasis. Because we're going to see meetings change, we're going to see businesses change that we've never seen before. And I think, I hate to admit, but I think this teleconferencing thing is going to be used a lot more. Even when this is all over, it's going to be used a lot more than people think.
I agree.
So I totally agree with that.
And the other question I had is, that's an awful lot of money. What happens if we don't get the funds to cover this, that we have the grant funds that
Yeah.
we've hoped to get? And the question was, do you have enough authority to be able to cover this? And they would be able to cover it, and may even consider using those pay for performance dollars from the CCO.
Okay, great. Thank you
So
for that information.
I would move approval of item 10 is F10.
Yes.
And that is the approval to authorize Yamhill County HHS to purchase Doxy.me telemedicine services in the amount of $86,160 per year.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioners, if I could just add one thing.
Please.
Given the short notice, we haven't really had time to thoroughly review the terms and conditions that apply to this platform. It is a click wrap form of agreement, which basically means you're accepting the terms and conditions when you click on the accept. But given the urgency behind this and the need for this to be implemented quickly. I have been reviewing the terms and conditions with county administrator and with Director Manfred. So while we may not have the terms and conditions that we would prefer, we will be reviewing and discussing the risks associated with proceeding. We've been looking at some of the data and other security questions that we need to make sure are answered. We're working with IT on that. So I just wanted to make you aware, it isn't going to be a typical sort of agreement. Ideally, we would take an agreement like this and negotiate some of those terms with the attorneys for Doxy, but again, given the urgency, we're not going to be able to do that. So there may be some risks that are slanted more towards us in this agreement than we might otherwise prefer. Just wanting to make you aware of that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, thank you. Right,
Okay.
and it is a per user fee as well, right?
Right.
So, which is why it adds up.
Too, if we don't use it, it's something that we can cancel and apply for a refund, possibly as well, depending on the reasons why we're canceling.
Right.
I do have a question about that because looking at the ability to cancel, it talked about, in other words, if a lot of it was on our end, if we couldn't get if we didn't have the technology to do it, or if we had, it seemed like there was quite a list of reasons why we could cancel,
Yeah.
but it was kind of in their favor.
So I have a copy of what they call their refund policy.
Mhm.
If you aren't satisfied with doxy.me, we'll make it right. That's how it started. When we would issue you a full refund is if you were charged for your next month, but you meant to cancel, or if you forgot to cancel a few months ago and haven't used it since then. When we would issue a credit or a partial refund, if you would like a refund but have since been utilizing your account, we'll review usage and estimate a prorated refund. Or if you're having technical difficulties using doxy.me, we may offer a credit or prorated refund if the issue can't be resolved. For example, there's not much in the way of a maintenance and support agreement here. So if we're having technical difficulties, it will simply be something that we hope we can try and work out. If we can't, depending on the technical problems, if it's something that, we insist is on our end, or we insist is on their end, but they insist is on our end, and we can't agree, then we may only get a partial refund there. So there is some question there as to how those difficulties might be resolved, but that's not uncommon. Generally, we would prefer to have a more detailed form of maintenance and support agreement with additional information about how quickly technical issues would be fixed. Again, we don't have that here. When we would not issue a full refund is if you're having technical issues that are out of our control when using Doxy, such as an inadequate internet connection, outdated computers, when you're utilizing Doxy and benefiting and not wanting to pay for it, or
Seems reasonable.
clinic set up after, yeah. So you're right, there are various categories in which you might or might not qualify for a full or a partial refund. So, I mean, it is something that we'll have to navigate. What I expect would happen is, according to Lindsay, they've been trying and experimenting with a couple of platforms that have been not terribly successful. This is a platform that there is some familiarity with in the community, that folks who have been using it appear to be satisfied with. So the hope is that we will have similar success.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is a motion on the table, but I just wanted to acknowledge that I appreciated hearing more information about it. Yes.
So we do have a motion?
Yes, exactly. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval of item F10. Coming back to 8. Yeah, are we ready to come back to 8?
I could say one thing. I don't know what various commissioners' schedules are. I heard that possibly Commissioner Olson had something at 11:30.
Yeah, well, Mary missed hers, I'll miss mine if I have to.
No, we might, well,
We have for the last 2 weeks postponed an executive session.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more time circling back to item 8 might take.
We could schedule a special
If we wanted
executive session.
to do the executive session to make sure we got that in today, or if we get close to bumping up against other things, we would simply have to postpone the executive session again until next week.
I would say under normal circumstances, outside of, we have limitations on the video recording and being able to do the video live stream to go in and out of that. So
Yeah.
we don't have the
Got it.
capability right now to go into executive session
Come back
and then come back in. There's some technical limitations as far as how the video goes, how it's streamed and with the recordings, and we can't necessarily put it together, so we end up with getting separate two.
Two streams. You'd have the stream for the first 95% of the session and the last portion.
And
Yeah.
the recording.
I guess my suggestion would be that we address number 8, possible, and then we schedule a special executive session for like Tuesday. You're gone Monday. Is it Monday you're gone?
No, I'm here.
For like either Monday or Tuesday, we just have just this executive session.
Again, if folks have time, we could continue to have the executive session later this morning. So I just don't know
Right.
what folks' schedules are looking like.
I have
If
time.
this takes another
Right.
20 minutes or a half an hour.
I will go into that one later. I'd rather get this over with
Okay.
myself.
Okay, so it's up to you.
Yeah,
It's up-
no, that's fine.
Okay,
So I'm a half an hour late. You'll be used to it.
okay, well, maybe you
Is
won't
it
do
a
all that
Zoom or
later.
is it a conference or a call?
It's a
'Cause it-
Zoom call.
Oh,
Zoom
then
call.
it's a little bit more dramatic when you pop it in.
I apologize for wasting
Oh, no,
some precious
no,
minutes.
no problem.
No,
I'm
go
ready
ahead.
to
We need to figure it out.
Let's go on to item
So
number
item
8.
F8, yes.
Okay.
Language.
So just preliminarily, the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, to our legislators, request your assistance in urging Governor Brown to expedite the reopening process, taking into consideration Yamhill County's, that's as far as I got.
To expedite reopening process.
The reopening process, taking into consideration Yamhill County's, as far as I got.
Strong trajectory in meeting the criteria.
Is
I,
taken into consideration due to the serious
Let me pull it up again.
serious nature of our economy, because we're more restaurant and tourist oriented. We have some plays there, but maybe just because of the impact it's having on our county.
so where are we?
How about this, taking into consideration that we are confident that with a proven and measured approach, we can begin to reopen our businesses, recreation sites, and places of worship, safely keeping physical distancing and sanitation guidelines utmost in our plans going forward.
Did he write that?
Bingo.
No, it's in the letter already.
Oh, yeah, it's down, I was like, it's actually down below.
That's a good.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
That letter I think puts out the point very.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it is at
That
the
paragraph
bottom.
that's down there.
Yeah.
Beautifully written paragraph.
It's at the bottom. Thanks for,
Why didn't you
Digging
bring
that
up
out
an
of all
hour?
of this.
Why didn't you bring that up an hour ago?
yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks, Christian. So do we want to,
I'm happy to entertain a motion for that, and then I can type it up as we
okay.
finish up here.
So I would make a motion that we write to our legislators, and that includes those who represent Yamhill County, our senators and our representatives, asking that the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners requests your assistance in urging Governor Brown to expedite the reopening of Yamhill County. Based on numbers and trends, we're confident with a prudent, measured approach, we can begin to open our businesses, recreation sites, and places of worship, keeping Physical distancing and sanitation guidelines uppermost in our plans going forward. We look forward to working with the Governor's Office, the Oregon Health Authority, Yamhill County Public Health Department, Yamhill County Office of Emergency Management, Yamhill County Community Care Organization, local chambers of commerce, the business community, and local partners to safely reopen our economic and community enterprises.
That sounds like a nice short, sweet thing.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let the record show unanimous approval on the record for item F, or what was presented as the motion for item F8.
And that is the letter to legislators.
Yes, legislators.
All
Okay,
right. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
thank you.
We are going to, do you mind if we hold off on announcements, or are there any urgent ones?
I don't have any urgent ones.
Urgent is that Commissioner Olson get to his meeting.
Yeah.
So are we going to do our executive
You
session?
might as well do that.
Well, then I will adjourn this meeting of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners combined informal and formal session.
Okay, great. And then you might still just be a few minutes late
Yeah,
if we can.
let's say we can go into executive session.